So what is flat foot? Well, flat feet, also known as pes planus, or fallen arches, is a postural deformity where the medial arches of the foot collapse. The medial arch of the foot is made up of the calcaneus, the talus, the navicular, the three cuneiforms, and the first, second, and third metatarsals. The plantar calcaneonavicular ligament, or the Sprague ligament, is elastic and is responsible for maintaining the arc. The Sprague ligament is supported inferiorly by the tendon of the tibialis posterior. So during normal gait, the foot adapts to the ground surface by absorbing shock and propelling the body forward. It does this by moving into pronation during weight acceptance, where the mid-tarsal joint unlocks, becoming more adaptable to the surface underneath. And then the mid-tarsal joint becomes locked into supination to provide stability for push-off. In flat feet, the head of the talus is displaced medially and distally from the navicular, resulting in the stretching of the Sprague ligament and the tendon of the tibialis posterior. This flattens the medial arc and creates a hypermobile midfoot where the subtalar joint remains in pronation and is unable to move into supination to provide stability during push-off. So there are two different types of flat feet. There is rigid flat foot, where it is a result of the bone deformation and means the foot never has an arch even when a person isn't weight-bearing. And then there are flexible flat feet, which are the most common, where the ligaments are loose or degenerated so that the arch is flat only when weight-bearing. So, what is this kinetic chain thing that I'm talking about? So it was the first concept introduced by Franz Rouleau that segments of the body are connected via joints and that movement or dysfunction at one joint affects movement or can cause dysfunction at another joint. So it relates to the term that a chain is only as strong as its weakest link. But Mike Reinold, a physical therapist, proposes that not all the links in the kinetic chain are as equally important. He explains this using a ripple effect. It is a chain reaction where the structures closest to the area of dysfunction are the most impacted, and as you move away from that area, the structures will become less and less impacted. So now let's answer the main question. How does flat foot affect the rest of the kinetic chain? So flat foot, especially flexible flat foot, is strongly correlated with overpronation in the subtalar joint. The subtalar joint connects the foot to the shank. The shank is the lower part of the leg from the knee to the ankle that contains the tibia and fibula. So since the talus is connected to the shank, excessive, prolonged, or hyperpronation of the talus can actually lead to tibial internal rotation. If the talus never returns to supination, the tibia will not be able to externally rotate to return to its original position. So the tibiofemoral joint then actually compensates for this as tibial external rotation is required during knee extension. This compensation is the femur internally rotating on the tibia. So this compensation alters patellofemoral tracking. The internal rotation of the femur increases the Q angle and the magnitude of lateral forces on the patella, increasing the compression between the lateral articular surface of the patella and the lateral femoral condyle. The combination of both tibial and femoral internal rotation places the tibiofemoral joint into valgus, which stretches the IT band, causing a lot of friction between the band and the femoral epicondyle, which can result in inflammation and pain. So prolonged internal rotation of the leg actually shortens the iliopsoas muscle group. The iliopsoas muscle group is made up of the iliacus and the psoas major muscles. The shortening of these muscles causes an anterior tilt of the pelvis. This tilt can result in a poor posture, curving the lower back. The kinetic chain includes more than just the joints. When the iliopsoas is so tight, the glutes will have less of a neural stimulus sent to them in order to facilitate reciprocal inhibition. What this is that the iliopsoas is a hip flexor and the glutes are hip extensors. So if they were both to contract at the same time, then movement would not be able to happen. So when one muscle is contracting, the body inhibits the opposing muscle. One last thing that is affected by flat feet is postural control and stability. Balance control in the medial lateral or side to side direction is enhanced because of the increased base of support in the medial lateral direction because of the flat fallen arch. But people with flat feet are at a greater disadvantage in the anterior posterior direction and have a harder time remaining stable when thrown off balance either forwards or backwards. So how can we fix it? Well, flat feet are not usually considered a problem unless one starts to experience pain. It really depends on how much arch is lost and how the rest of the kinetic chain is affected by it. This isn't something that can be predicted, as it does not happen in everyone with flat feet. But if you have flat feet and would like to alleviate pain or prevent the condition from becoming chronic, here are some ways you can do it. So one way you can do it is you can perform exercises to strengthen your arches. What you do is you try to shorten the distance between the ball of your foot and your heel by sliding your forefoot along the ground towards the heel. This is a really small movement as the heel and ball of the foot stay on the ground and the toes don't curl as the arch lifts. A second thing you can do is stretch your calves. So stretching your calves can actually control foot pronation and prevent the collapsing of the arches. And then a third thing you can do is to perform heel raises. Performing heel raises also strengthens several of the muscles that support the arch. One of the most popular interventions for flat foot and controlling foot pronation is the use of foot orthosis, which is also known as orthotics. So foot orthosis with a medial wedge will actually provide an arch in order to promote a neutral subtalar joint position. This reduces foot pronation, lessens the excessive internal rotation of the lower extremities, and produces a less pronounced valgus and Q angle, which can abolish the patellofemoral pain that some people experience. So thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit about how flat feet can affect the kinetic chain.